Welcome. Today I thought I might bring you a reading from a star chart. It's dated for the 2nd of February in 2022 at 2:22 p.m. in Bathurst, New South Wales, Australia. This is a significant date, as you can imagine, so many twos, and I chose it for this specific reason. Each planet in the sky has basic natural rulerships. When looking at the chart, you can see that each of the planets, as they move through their signs, have specific power to be able to function effectively. One thing I notice here is the planet Venus. Venus is sitting at 11 degrees and 22 minutes in the sign of Capricorn on a very sensitive part of the chart called the vertex. The vertex symbolizes change or a pivot point. Venus is also retrograde, signifying an appearance of moving backwards in comparison to the movement of Earth. When this happens, it displays its natural elements as an inwards turn instead of an expression, instead of an outward expression. One of the natural rulerships for Venus that I've been observing lately is that she represents the beneficiaries. Technically, within our society, truthfully, we the people are meant to be the beneficiaries. But as things have progressed through time, our lovely overlords have decided to make themselves the beneficiaries. And so this is a key turning point in that element. This is what this is suggesting, that these people who have elevated themselves as what Capricorn would represent, that higher achieving higher things in the material realm, are now starting to turn inwards, retract the things that has happened, and they're at a key turning point in their progression of the things that they've been doing, their plans, etc. Given that they are in the 8th house of the chart, the 8th house is a difficult chart. It's a chart of death. It's essentially death, loss, inheritances, because usually inheritance would come from a death, debts, taxes, anxiety and trauma and all these kind of things. So there's an element of difficulty occurring there for the beneficiaries due to this change. However, Venus also has another significant meaning in the chart, because each planet usually has some sort of rulership over the house. So you can look at the house and say, for example, with the 8th house, it's in Sagittarius. So Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and you can see that it's strong in Pisces because it's in its own sign. So death, taxes, inheritances, debts, anxiety, fear, loss, all of those things are considered to really have a strong impact over the circumstances of what this chart is showing us. Now, you can see here the ascendant sign, which is Taurus, and the ascendant is at 22 degrees and 11 minutes. Isn't that interesting? You got 22 degrees and 11 minutes there, and 11 degrees and 22 minutes here. Very significant numbers. 11 being the gateway, and 22 being the master builder. The ascendant is in the sign of Taurus, and Venus rules Taurus. The ascendant sign is usually the person asking the question. When we're talking about horary charts, It's also generally the planet that dominantly rules the chart. So you could say that if I was to be asking the question, this could also represent me. But given that I haven't asked a specific question, this chart, I'm just looking at it as in a general perspective, what's happening. What are the planets doing, within natural rulerships? But the first house is the house of self, and it represents vitality, well-being, the face, the appearance, and all this general self-related things. So you have the fixed star, our goal, at 26 degrees 28, and fixed stars generally move very slow, so it's been there for quite a while, but it has quite a difficult interpretation in that it is a star called the blinking demon, and the mythology behind Algol or Algul has to do with Perseus and Medusa, where Perseus hunts down Medusa to cut off her head in order to use her head to save Andromeda from the Kraken. So there's this idea with Taurus also ruling the neck, astrologically speaking, where the neck is influenced. And you can see here the North Node is moving towards our goal, and the North Node and the South Nodes, and this is the South Node over here in Scorpio, so that little funny upside down bucket looking thing, they both represent a karmic pathway. So you have the past and the direction you're heading to, the future. So it's interesting to see what this is describing, that from the other people moving towards this mythology about a hero cutting off the head of Medusa in order to rescue the princess Andromeda. There's also the part of fortune, which is that circle with a cross in the middle at 4 degrees and 23 minutes in Gemini. The part of fortune is, as you may sound as it describes, it's a sensitive point in the chart where fortune can be found. So there's this combination that perhaps there's going to be a challenging situation where fortune is found, but through the death of one monster to kill an even bigger monster, and also the fixed star Aldebaran, which is a very powerful star. It's the eye of Taurus and connects to Archangel Michael. So within the self of the collective and the people, there's these things, these elements at play where we're moving towards, this mythology and great fortune and the power to overachieve and overcome darkness. So the other point I wanted to look at was the moon. So the moon is a very important planet to look at always, as it's on the great hand of the great hands of the clock. It's the quickest moving one. It's the closest to us and has the most influence over us, right next to the sun, because it influences the waters of the earth and thus the waters of the body and the emotional and psychological elements of the people. So in general, as a natural rulership, it represents the people. It's in a human sign, so yet again there's that emphasis on people and the man. And even though it's not in a strongest sign, it is in its own decan, so it has some power to influence. It's in the 9th house of higher education and religion, the law, and long distance travel. So we've had a long journey over the last 2 years moving through the process of learning the law, our rights, our sovereignty, also, understanding the importance of religion and how that affects our spirituality. And, I think you can see the people are coming to that conclusion. The moon is also in the bounds of Saturn. So you can see these lower two squares there below the moon decan. You have Mars on one side, but the moon's in the Saturn one. So there's a bit of Saturn influence coming through there too, which isn't too bad, given that Saturn, sitting right next to the moon and next to the sun, is in its own sign. So it's quite strong there and powerful. And Saturn has an administrative influence. It's a difficult planet, as it's one that represents challenges and lessons and karma. So it being strong, you can see the influence it's had over the past 2 years, since February, when it first sort of started moving into Aquarius. Excuse me. But it is also an authority to the people because of the sign Aquarius. It's just that administration to the people, where they had to go through these challenges, these restrictions, these difficulties to really see the truth of themselves. It's been obscured by the sun. So if you have a look, it's at 15 degrees 37 minutes of Aquarius, whereas the sun right next to it is at 13 degrees 15 minutes Aquarius. The sun is also authority, and it's supposed to be that divine authority. It's in its house of joys, being in the 9th house, because it represents God. The sun is God, it's that light, the life giver, that higher intellect, that spiritual intellect, that is the divine intelligence within us. But here it's in its detriment, because it's in Aquarius. So the ego is being subdued a bit, but its light is also obscuring Saturn. So if you were to go outside and look at the sun in the skies, it's sort of, heading towards setting in the afternoon, you wouldn't be able to see Saturn. You probably wouldn't be able to see the moon either. It's a new moon, as the moon's just past the sun and is, making its way around the clock again. So that also represents a new phase, new beginnings. But you wouldn't really be able to see the moon or Saturn if you were to go and look into the sky. The weakness of the sun and that authority figure, and the fact that Aquarius and Leo are intercepted, so there's no house lines. So the house lines, as you can see, neither the 3rd house nor the 4th house sit in Leo, and the same with Aquarius, is intercepted, suggests that these are hidden matters that are behind the scenes, things that aren't going to have such an obvious effect at first to the people and to what's happening within our world, in society. Jupiter. So if you look here, you see the MC. So the MC is the very highest point in the sky. If you were to go outside and look up, that would be the highest point in the sky. And that represents our public arena. That's, out there in the world, in society. If you were to go out in public, that would be where the MC is. That's how it manifests into our reality. It also represents, it's the careers. If you were to look at a natal chart, someone's career, their reputation, it might be someone's boss. And here we see Jupiter is ruling over the MC, and it's strong in Pisces. So within the public arena, the influences of Jupiter are strong, and Jupiter's general natural significations have to do with things like law and justice. It's the spiritual concepts, where the religion is the doctrine. Jupiter puts the spiritual exploration, especially in Pisces, it's highly metaphysical. So there's the idea that there's these changes happening within society where, we've had these stressful situation of anxiety, and perhaps could be some death, some debts and taxes and, anxieties coming to play. But it's a huge pivotal changing point where new laws and spiritual concepts are being implemented within society, and the general authority that we know is being challenged a lot in their ability to properly express authoritative powers, especially within the law. I don't think it's going to be easy. It won't be easy, but change never is. And we will see big changes shift. Things are starting to get better. You're starting to see the people moving into a better phase. The law is getting stronger and more prominent and being implemented in, hopefully, well, I would say argue a more beneficial way, but that's yet to be seen. As you can see, the bound is in Venus, so it's relating to Venus. There's a mutual reception there because Venus is also in the bound of Jupiter. So there's definitely, these beneficiaries are being affected by this new law, or new ways of viewing and implementing the law within society. But it will come, later. It still has a few more degrees to go before it will reach its strength. And it's interesting, if you look here to Neptune, which is this, horned looking upside down cross. And Neptune, it's one of those malleable planets that kind of really manifest those fear, those scary things. If you were to imagine the very depths of the ocean, those unknowable things that we just don't know what could be down there, and some of the creatures that live down there are scary and a bit it's that kind of imaginative concepts that can come through, but when it manifests in reality, it can actually relate to poisons and toxins. And Mars, so it's that Neptune is in both the bounds, so that's the lower square there, and the decan, the higher square of Mars. And Mars is, sharp and pointy things. It's, it's the planet of weaponry. And I would relate that to the, that which cannot be named, the needle. So you can see its influence, it's being overcome by Pluto. There's huge changes, but it's been in that aspect for a very long time. And Mercury's there too. Interesting, Mercury. So the other thing I was just looking at was the IC. So the IC represents, it's the fourth house, which is the house of home. It's the homeland. You'll find patriotism there, and that's your literal house. And that Mercury next to Pluto, big changes in the house, in the home, in the homeland, due to the that which cannot be named. But it's actually sitting on the fixed star Regulus, which is the star of the king. It's the star of rulers. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays, what influence exactly that is having to the homeland when, we sort of talk about the Queen and, what rulers will take her place when she sort of goes on to the next life and these kind of concepts. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there for now. There are huge changes, as we know. There's a lot of anxiety and struggles still yet to overcome. But I would argue that, things are going to change. And this may be a challenging time for everyone. There may be more restrictions, but, yet again, it's kind of like the people are leaving those restrictions. And the authorities there, this weakened authority. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed my little chat about the star chart of this state, and until next time, thank you.